対戦を確認。
始めよう。抑制する。
バリアよ。リロード。A に敵確認。リロード。
スパイクを設置。
ターゲットダウン。B に敵複数。
回復するわ。
ねえ気をつけな。
残念ね。自分へ帰る。
最後の一人だ。
Hey guys, it's me again. So I'm kind of freaking out right now. I'm really nervous because I'm about to go downstairs and break some really bad news to my mother. Basically, these shoes right here are worth like $1.2, $1.3 thousand. I accidentally bought these for 1.5. I'll explain later how it was an accident, but I am really nervous right now, man. Like I'm straight up shaking right now because if you know anything about Asian parents or just parents in general, they really value money and they hate when their son or daughter just wastes it. And the thing is, I did something very similar to this a while ago on my second channel, and my mom freaked out and did not react well at all. So I already know how this is about to turn out. All right, so quickly, how did I buy these shoes for 1.5K? On the app? I swear it was an accident. All right, so there's an app. I'm not shouting them out because it is the worst app in the world. But the app is called GOAT, which is weird because the acronym for GOAT stands for Greatest of All Time. And there's something great about this app. anyways, I was already asked, I saw these shoes, they were listed for $1.7, which I wasn't trying to buy that. There was another option where you can counter offer where if you want to
Spike will
lower the
set.
price, if there's someone out there that has
最後の
they
一
can
人だ
accept the counter offer. Right? So my counter offer was if the shoe is in the price range of 1.2 to 1.5 because they told me to pick two prices. If it's in that range, I will potentially buy it. I'm not sure. Anyways, I submit the counter offer. Next day I wake up, it says your counter offer has been accepted. Right? Usually on eBay or Amazon or any site where you buy stuff online, it would always come back to me, and I could confirm it if I actually want to go through with it or if I don't. But they had no confirmation. They just took money out of my account, right? So I'm like, damn, just a big misunderstanding. I'll just email them and be like, can I have a refund? My bad, right? I emailed them and they straight up said no refund. And I'm like, I just accidentally bought.
壁を展開
敵を抑える
He
一体抑制
had to pay rent or he had to put food on the table, but he just accidentally bought $1,000 pair of shoes where he has to starve now. Whatever, man, I'm over it. But oh, yeah, I totally forgot. I actually placed these orders in November. It took nearly 2 months. I got these in January to get to my house. So this app is awful, straight terrible. But anyways, I'm about to go downstairs, about to talk to my mom, about to get roasted probably, and hopefully I can learn a few things and humble myself.
スパイクを設置
ねえ気をつけな
And I tried to keep
B
it
に
from
行く
me,
な
but I just can't anymore. But I bought these shoes, and they were 1,500.
敵残り1名
Well, I bought it on accident.
Accident. 1,500 đồng mà đem ra làm
アルティメットいけるわ
How can be accident?
Cause the website it like messed up, and there's no
こ
return.
んなこと許されない
No return. Bây giờ sao? Nói nó đi để làm gì?
爪が甘いわね
Hả?
その甘さが
I just wanted you.
Nói chọc mới tức hả?
No,
Chọc cho mình tức hả? Chọc cho mình tức hả? 1,500 mà dám mua đôi giày lại nói mày để làm gì nữa?
oh, do you think it's worth that much?
It's worth nothing. It's worth $20 cho nó mì. 1,500 đồng mua đôi giày giống như giày lính. Mua đôi giày của tụi
Khata
lính.
Zukeru.
1,500 đồng. Mày có bị smart money không vậy hả coi à? Hả?
敵を抑える
Mua đi 3,700, 800 giờ đôi giày tới 1,500.
気をつけて
Mà muốn cho mua đôi giày 10.000 luôn. Có giày 10.000 không?
フラッシュだ
No, but I won't buy that much.
Yeah. Go up every day.
恐怖を見せてやる
Như vậy đó, làm nhiều mà xài cái cũ trên nó xài cái kiểu này á. Không, tiền nó mày xài.
I don't know.
A でキャリアダウ
Sell
ン
it back.
Chờ bắt cho nhiều.
気をつけな
Cái gì đó đó. Con mua bạn đồ cũ rồi. Còn cái đây thì ông mua bán được bao nhiêu? Hả? Mày phải tao không giữ tiền.
Đi đâu?
Mua về để mà mua tới giờ bao nhiêu biết tiền bây giờ. Mua ít cho mọi người gần gửi đồng luôn. Hả?
見せないよ
Hả?
I'm sorry.
Sorry for what?
敵残り1名 リロード
Có khi là mày hỏi nó mới trước khi mày mua không? Never. Every time làm cái gì đưa lưỡi đôi là phải chọc nó cũng không.
あと30秒
Toàn là làm xong rồi lại mami để làm gì? Một cái này.
調子悪い日もあるよね
A にスパイク
Cái đó này.
What?
息を整えろ
What,
まあ私には必要ないことだが
bro?
Rồi mua xong nó lại nói không à? Bây giờ mày hỏi ông tự mami à? Con muốn thì được không hay gì không? Never.
All right. I'm sorry. Why would you hit my shoe now?
守りきれ
うせな壁を展開
ナイフ射出
Sorry you guys had to see that.
中央に敵だアルティメットいけるぜ中央
I think I'm grounded, so I can't even leave my room. So I'm gonna be really, really bored. So if you guys can help me out, reading a lot of
Target
comments
down.
to keep me entertained. So I've been really happy at least 4 videos every week for the past.
リロード中
All the support. If you're a fake supporter, fuck out of here.
B でキャリアダウン。敵残り1名。
B にスパイク発見
And I hope you have a great day.
Fly in the coop, but I need some more. Your antics make me bored, cause I just came around to say hello.
スモーク出すよ
Style or substance. Or here's another choice. Don't stop until you have everything.
あと30秒。
Alright guys, it's one of those days where we just go out because we have nothing else to do. Actually, no,
あれが最強オーライ
多少の損傷は問題ない。人間と違って頑丈なのでな。
欲しいものある人
Hey, good news! We found you another reason to go back and check out Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away. Of course, the only cost to you is finding out all those small details you missed in this stunning animated film. Look, we get it. You get so taken aback by the brilliant colors and awe-inspiring moments that you don't always notice the details. That, or you don't remember all the behind-the-scenes information it took to make this movie. That's why Screen Rant is here to help you out and show you what you missed. Keep in mind, this video will give you a considerable edge to watch all of Hayao Miyazaki's filmography. Speaking of this filmmaker's legendary status, it's often forgotten that he was never at the Academy Award ceremony when Spirited Away won. In an interview years later, he admitted that he didn't go as a quiet protest to the bombings happening in the Middle East. Any fan of Miyazaki knows that he doesn't take kindly to violence, especially war based off evidence that was flimsy at best. It's incredible to know that this director stood by his beliefs even when faced with one of the most outstanding achievements in his career. It turns out this detail tends to occur in every Studio Ghibli film. Now, we're painting things with a broad stroke brush, but let's get more specific about Spirited Away. In the pre-production process, most of the story was formed by the storyboard only. That is to say, for the longest time, the team was animating with no idea what the dialogue would be. Of course, the general plot points were there, but not the script itself. What's impressive is the whole team understood the unified vision without words to detail the themes and emotions present. For some reason, this entry is obvious, but we need to acknowledge that many people in this film's fan base don't speak Japanese. If you do know the language, then this entry is insanely apparent, so bear with us. Every name in the movie takes a literal meaning in Japanese. For instance, Chihiro means 1,000 fathoms or searches, which is incredibly fitting for the character.
This is where you are, but this is where you want to go. We give you the rewards, and you choose where they'll take you. Introducing the Credit One Bank Wander American Express card.
Sorry to ruin your groove, but I'm not the worst. What if I told you there was a way for you? This is Pi, and if it's...
Especially since her worker's name, Sen, means 1,000. Then, of course, there's Yubaba, which translates to bathhouse witch in English. We could go on and on, but you should certainly check out some of these names when you get the chance. Even Kamaji means old boiler man, which is just the perfect description. Shinto is a religion in Japan that comes into view multiple times throughout this movie. Whether you realize it or not, the themes of this humble and peaceful belief system litter Spirited Away. Miyazaki has stated that Shinto is a considerable influence on this film and other pieces by this director. But what exactly is Shinto? In a brief sense, the Shinto religion focuses on the connection between humans and the spirit world. There's also a deep sense of nature and reverence for its rhythm in this religion. When you say it out loud, it starts to make a ton of sense, huh? The influence goes even further. Clear Shinto symbols show up throughout the film. Do those American voices sound familiar? Turns out they have stacks and stacks of a accomplishments that many often forget about.
Is it
For instance,
Toyo-sensei?
Jason Marsden voices Haku in the original English dubbing. Marsden also voiced Zachary Binks in Hocus Pocus and Max Goof in a Goofy Movie, to give you an idea. Suzanne Plachette, the English voice for Yubaba, was a phenomenal classic movie actress. She earned her voice to Lion King 2 and Spirited Away. Of course, the most famous of the American voice actors is Davei Chase, who also voiced Lilo in Lilo and Stitch. Oh yeah, she's also Samara Morgan in The Ring, so let that nightmare commence. No Face, aka the character that launched 1,000 cosplays, is one of the most famous creations from Studio Ghibli now. He might look familiar upon first glance, too. Even if you've never managed to see Spirited Away, you know No Face. Which, if that's the case, great to have you here. Hope you're enjoying this video. Anyway, the minute you realized he's based on a silkworm, you begin to see it. The smooth edges and soft opacity begin to make sense. That and his creepy worm-like metamorphosis when he begins to consume. It all starts adding up. So, remember that next time you cosplay as No Face. You're basically a silkworm in disguise. It's a small detail that often gets lost in the shuffle. The majority of these places you see come straight from the real landscapes of Japan. Of course, there have been edits made to the buildings, but they're not far off. Sometimes, if your eye is keen enough, you can identify the exact location that inspired the structure. Every once in a while, the edit is a near replication, and fans will go out and photograph the same shot. Next time you watch a Studio Ghibli movie, just consider how much detail goes into the setting around the characters. Back in 1997, Hayao Miyazaki was considering retirement. He started Studio Ghibli with his partners 12 years before that and was nearing his 60s. Princess Mononoke was a success, and things appeared to be on the right track. It made sense to call it right then and there. You know that wasn't the case. Miyazaki was on vacation with a friend who brought along his for adventure seeking and constant movement inspired him. Her personality molded the character she away. Thank goodness he took that trip. Otherwise, we'd never experience this masterpiece as a fully realized film. It is fantastic that one child can inspire so much creativity for people to enjoy for years to come. Time and time again, John Lasseter, chief creative at Pixar, has said that Studio Ghibli deserves all the praise for how it inspired him. So remember this, no Studio Ghibli would mean no Pixar. Imagine a world where neither of these bright spots exists. It would be a real travesty. Obviously, the two studios know of each other. Together, they essentially created the best animated film category at the Oscars. What you may not know is inspired by the work of Pixar. In one scene, a small lamp dances around excitedly while we watch. Yep, it's a subtle way to acknowledge Pixar's work and how they changed the animation industry. Speaking of Pixar, we widely regard them as the most prominent innovators for 3D animation. Generally, graphics wouldn't be the same without their tireless efforts. Fans tend to contrast their work with Studio Ghibli, who's better known for distinct drawings. Otherwise, there's occasional computer animation in Spirited Away. They aren't familiar, but they are present. Generally, the animation is traditional, but computer-generated shading was used here and there to help perfect the animations. This just goes to show that even Studio Ghibli acknowledged the future of animation. They weren't going to ignore innovation for the sake of traditionalism. We're lucky to see the perfect blend between the two mediums and a balance with computer graphics. You always hear people swear by the original versions of Studio Ghibli movies. The English dubs are never the same, and that's simply a fact. However, that doesn't mean they aren't worth your time. If you're new to foreign movies and Japanese culture, then the English dub is what you need to see first. Lasseter was the director for the American version of Spirited Away and wanted the dub to be super close to the original translation. However, there are cultural gaps Lasseter knew he needed to fill. Hence the reason there are scenes where dialogue is added to explain things for American audiences. It's helpful if you're unfamiliar with certain concepts, but you don't even notice the additions until you see both versions. There's an incisive battle where Chihiro gives up part of her gift from the River Guardian to help Haku after he's badly hurt. While he's still in dragon form, she needs to force him to eat it, yet Haku refuses to open his mouth. In a desperate moment, Chihiro pries his mouth open and shoves the food inside him to heal him. The
ここは
moment feels
私
so
たちの故郷
visceral and you get absorbed by it. To make those actions feel real, the animators studied vets at work who
Then
know how to
ham-
medicate
Dai-shu
animals
round.
when they resist. The whole scene was based on a dog forced to take a pill. They replicated the jaw movement and even the teeth inside its mouth. It helps explain what makes that scene so effective, huh? Actually, some of you may have noticed that the flowers Chihiro holds onto from a dear friend come from Rumi. The friend isn't named after the actor, but instead it's actually a Persian poet who wrote in the 13th century. They likely chose Rumi as the child's name to reflect one of the themes in the movie. Rumi's works focus on personal growth and inclusion. Rumi sought direct paths to change and didn't want to offend on his way towards discovery. It's a similar journey we see Chihiro take in the movie. At first glance, you'd think this film is entirely perfect. Like every film on the planet, it has a few mistakes here and there. Most of these errors were caught before the release, but not every one of them was corrected. That's the point of this entry. Sure, we could have made a separate entry for each and every one of these, but where's the fun in that? Most of these mistakes come down to tiny errors. The blood on Chihiro's hand switches from left to right once or twice. Her smudge mark isn't in the same place. They forget to show a full tub after it's filled or a plate with cake at one point. It's tiny little things that mess up, but just goes to show how even great films make mistakes. So this one is just so odd that we can't help but bring it up to you guys. See, early in the first act, Chihiro's parents begin eating the spiritual food and consuming non-stop. Yubaba punishes them by turning them into pigs, but not before Chihiro talks to them briefly.
Oh, it's delicious.
勝手打ってブンブンブンブンではい終わりだろ
While filming the scene, both the American and Japanese voice actors ate KFC to authenticate the performance. Why did both of them choose KFC? Well, we don't have that answer, but let us know what you think in the comments. The stink spirit stinks its way into the bathhouse, and the customers rush back to their rooms. Sen is tasked with cleaning him, and she notices an odd object protruding from the side of the spirit. Yubaba has a sudden realization, and the entire workforce tugs on the handle, revealing a stuck bicycle. As it comes out, a flood of other debris pours out with it. The spirit is actually the guardian of a great river, and the scene was inspired by a real event. Miyazaki was helping a local organization clean a river. There was a horrible smell due to all the litter, and the whole team had to help pull the bicycle from the riverbed because the mud was keeping it clung to the bottom. The beginning titles feature the letters S-E-N-T-O. You can read that one of two ways and end up with different meanings. Honestly, it's such a brilliant detail that we still can't believe it's real. Let's just run through it so you can see what we mean exactly. So, if you read it as two separate words, sen and to, you get the translation thousand and obviously the title implies a connection between our protagonist and all the characters she meets. The one-word translation, sento, translates into the bathhouse, where most of the film takes place. See, both words work, but in two completely different ways. The ending of the film is so moving. Chihiro's deeds earned her a ticket out of the spirit world and the chance for her to reunite with her parents. As they walk back through the station, the car is covered in leaves and dust, implying that it's been days since they've been here. Then they drive off in the other direction, back on the road towards their new home. Those two final scenes probably look super familiar, right? Well, they are familiar. The animators simply reversed the movement of both of those scenes. It was a quick shortcut that still manages to make the desired impact. It's not like you'd usually notice this anyway. No, before you say it, we're refusing to buy it. There is no way the animators happened to make an island that looks like Kame House. This isn't happenstance, people. The Easter egg is just an Easter egg. They're totally paying homage to the great Dragon Ball series that was, and still is, widely popular.
Finding where you fit.
Is wood paneled with a porch and a red roof. It's Kame House, plain and simple. The
いや
movie
そ
that
れ以
captured
上
the
だ
imagination of every viewer it reached nearly fell flat on its face. Remember, there was no script when they started production. The production was working way behind schedule and could slow the English crew waiting to dub it. They needed a ton of significant scenes animated with only a few months to meet their deadline. The studio hired 20 more animators and pushed their hours to a
Sentou
beyond
体制に入れ
standard. It was an
容赦は
all-out
いらない
animation fest to get the film done on time. They often worked into the night every single day. Their diet was just ramen for weeks on end. They finished on time, and we received this fantastic work in return. There's a video here on Screen Rant about adult actors and children. Honestly, we could have done a whole video with voice actors and Hayao Miyazaki's early work and called it a day. He often used adults to play the children since they tend to respond to direction well, or at least that's what the industry says generally. Rumi Hiragi voicing Chihiro was the first time a young voice actor voiced a child in one of his films. Well, at least in a leading role for sure. The decision was substantial and elevated the performance to a new level. Once again, showing how the details in this movie matter so much. Spirited Away made waves to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Tentacle was still relatively new, and competition for the honor was fierce that year. The movie defied the odds and partially won thanks to its English dubbing, making it more accessible to American critics. We like to think it would have won regardless. As we're making this list, it currently stands that Spirited Away is the only foreign film to win Best Animated Feature. More specifically, it's the only hand-drawn, non-English movie to capture an Oscar in the animated feature category. There's been plenty of tries since its release, but no one's managed to repeat this feat. Here is some historical context first. When Spirited Away came out, Titanic was king of the box office. It was the highest grossing movie in the world. It didn't matter where you were from, you went to see Titanic or you purchased it on VHS. The movie made a crap ton of money. Even in Japan, it was the highest grossing film in its market to that point. Spirited Away Cameron's blockbuster and proved how popular this movie was in its native country. Seriously, we can't stress how incredible this is. More people paid to see this film in Japan than paid to see Titanic in theaters there. That is an insanely popular movie. If you live in America, you don't experience Ma super often. Miyazaki defined Ma as the use of negative space or the absence of movement. Essentially, Ma is a pause. In creating a film, Miyazaki would often say that the film takes on a life of its own. He simply writes down. If you take that at face value, that means even a movie to move. In Western cinema, editors are taught to keep the scene moving. Slowing down is wasting space. You often don't see mainstream movies take any time anymore to pause. The train scene from Spirited Away is long. The characters don't move, and this detail remains hidden until you understand what the director intended. When Miyazaki worked on Princess Mononoke, he'd often listen to the albums of Japanese artist Yumi Kimura. Kimura's work inspired him, and he was determined to feature some of her work in an upcoming film. Remember, Miyazaki was considering retirement after that film. Still, he did attempt to get 2 personal projects off the ground before settling on Spirited Away. He even commissioned Kimura to work on the soundtrack for his movie Rin and the Chimney Painter. Obviously, the film wasn't going to see the light of day at the time, and Kimura's work was getting left behind as the studio shifted focus to Spirited Away. It was a last-second decision, but Miyazaki and the film's composer felt her work on Always With Me was the perfect ending. Well, there you have it. All the details you needed to know about Spirited Away. Is there a crucial detail we missed out on? Share it in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to get up to date with all the latest videos from Screen Rant.
Every time you die, humanity moves forward. But this Mickey's special.
Who cares? He's gonna be dead in 10 minutes.
Mickey 17, March 7th, rated R.
From idea to submission, empower students to do their best work with Grammarly's comprehensive AI writing assistant. What if
Spirited Away is one of the best animated films ever made. Correction, it is one of the best films, period. Aside from being the highest rated Studio Ghibli film on IMDb, aside from being the first and only Japanese film to win an Oscar for Best Animated Feature, aside from still being the highest grossing film in Japan 19 years later, Spirited Away is simply a beautiful piece of cinema. Much has been made of director Hayao Miyazaki's attention to detail in the visual art or movement of his animation, but Miyazaki also applies this level of detail to the fantasy elements in his stories. Miyazaki's films have a mythic quality, in part because he's an amazing storyteller, but also because they draw from pre-existing mythology, folklore, and culture. Miyazaki is usually careful not to reference any of these myths or legends overtly, and for this reason it is difficult to uncover his sources. In this video, however, I'm going to try anyway. Just to be clear, Miyazaki has given hints here and there, but has not revealed what specific mythology he was inspired by for Spirited Away. I will make my best guesses on this based on clues I find in the film. Also, I will try my best with pronunciations, but I'm sure I'll make mistakes. Gomen nasai. Let's get started. The film's first little hint that we are departing the world we know and entering into the other world comes in the form of a wooden gate called a tori. Tori gates signify the entrance to a shrine of the Shinto religion, one of two major spiritual practices in Japan alongside Buddhism. Shinto, however, is indigenous to Japan alone. Entering through a tori signifies you are entering the sacred realm of the gods, or kami in Japanese. The word Shinto itself means way of the gods. Although Chihiro doesn't pass through this tori, it may be a hint that she will pass through another gate soon and enter the realm of the gods. In fact, Spirited Away's original title in Japanese is Sento Chihiro no Kamikakushi. That latter word means hidden by gods, a concept in Japanese folklore comparable to being taken or spirited away by fairies in European folklore. Below the shrine, Chihiro notices these little stone houses called Kokora. These tiny roadside shrines are meant to house minor kami and guardian spirits called Dosojin. Another representation of Dosojin are roadside statues, one Chihiro notices in the forest, and this other one that forces her dad to abruptly hit the brakes of his Audi. Dosojin statues often mark boundaries. For example, the one Chihiro and his family are about to cross. These kami are also thought to protect travelers and those in transitional phases. The Aburaya bathhouse or onsen that we see for the first time here is said to be loosely based on the Dogo Onsen in Matsuyama, reputedly the oldest onsen in Japan. Onsens are a staple of Japanese culture and have been popular for millennia. They may also be referred to as sento when they don't have access to natural hot spring water. The first kami that Chihiro actually sees is Haku, who I'll go into more detail on later. Haku casts a distraction spell, blowing what looks like white sakura petals toward the onsen. I can't find any sources for this particular spell, however Haku's spells generally resemble the magical practices of Onmyodo, a form of astrology and divination based on Shinto as well as Soon after, Chihiro notices these transparent shadow kami. Traditionally, kami don't have forms visible to human eyes, and are only visible when they inhabit other forms, for example trees or other elements of nature. These appear to be kami who haven't taken a specific visible form. I should note that their depiction is similar to that of a Japanese yokai, or spirit, called umibozu, which you see depicted here in a 19th century scroll painting. Japanese folklore does include a variety of animal transformations. For example, the mischievous tanuki or kitsune are thought to transform into various forms, including humans or birds. Transforming into animals or yokai is also not uncommon. However, given the Chihiro's parents display in the scene, it's fairly safe to assume this pig transformation is a metaphor for greed and consumerism. It is also worth mentioning that Miyazaki has a personal affinity with pigs. He often portrays himself as a pig, and even created a whole film starring a man-turned-pig Porco Rosso.
The God's rubber button. This is Pi, and if it sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've seen their ads everywhere.
敵残り1名
These masked kami are called Kasuga-sama, named after the Kasuga Shinto Shrine in Nara Prefecture. They wear sokotai, or traditional Japanese court clothing, and paper masks called zomen. Zomen masks are worn by bugaku dancers in specific ritual dances called ama or soriko, and these are performed at the Kasuga Shrine. The dancers, however, are very much human, and as we see later, when one of these kami disrobes, he is not. So, given their name, it's possible they represent kami from the Kasuga Shrine. Haku gives Chihiro a berry to eat, so she won't vanish from the spirit world. This is similar to a belief in fairy lore as well as the mythology of other cultures. However, again, it is most likely influenced by Japanese mythology and Shinto. In the Japanese creation myth, Izanagi vanished to the realm of the dead, giving birth to the god of fire, Kagutsuchi. Her brother and consort, Izanagi, travels to the realm of the dead to retrieve her, but she explains that she's already eaten the food of the land of the dead and therefore cannot leave. Similarly, Chihiro must eat the food of the kami world in order to stay there. This is the first time we see No-Face, or Kaonashi, Faceless as he's called in Japanese. Like most of the characters in this film, No-Face is an original creation by Miyazaki, however his origins are a little more mysterious than the other kami. One clear reference we can find in his appearance is his mask. It greatly resembles a mask of the traditional Japanese theater called No. No specific No mask resembles No-Face's mask, no pun intended, but some of these, called Onryo, are meant to depict spirits or ghosts. These kami resemble Namahage, a horned demon-like creature of Japanese folklore, similar to the more widely known Oni. In Akita Prefecture, there is a yearly tradition in which men will dress up like Namahage to scare children into good behavior. Their costumes usually include mino, or straw capes, and they brandish deba knives. As you can see, these kami have similar capes, and one is packing a blade. I know some people might say the frog, Ogairu, resembles water sprites known as kappa, but in fact he more resembles anthropomorphic toads found in Japanese scroll paintings from around the 12th century onward. Kamaji the Boiler Man is another original character, yet closely resembles a Tsuchigumo, another yokai of Japanese folklore. These giant, spider-like creatures are often depicted with the face of an oni and the body of a tiger. They can also change their appearance to human-like to deceive their prey, or alter their size, similar to the way Kamaji can elongate his arms. Kamaji's face even resembles this depiction of a Tsuchigumo from the 19th century. In folklore, Tsuchigumo flourished until they were exterminated by Emperor Jimmu, and this may be why we don't see others like Kamaji. He is the last of his kind. The Susuwatari, or soot sprites, that appear in both Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro are again original creations by Miyazaki. In some ways they are yokai-like, but they are unique enough that I won't compare them to any specific yokai. In Japanese, the radish spirit is called Oshida-sama. This is a real Shinto deity and patron of silk production. However, the common representation of Oshida-sama in Shinto are bamboo sticks adorned in cloth, rather than a giant, fat radish creature. The latter depiction was definitely a creative choice by Miyazaki, perhaps inspired by some of the bigger radishes he's encountered. Misogi is the ritual practice in Shinto of purification through bathing, and this concept also applies to the gods of the Shinto religion. In the Japanese creation myth, after Izanagi escapes the underworld and his sister, he bathes in a river to purify himself. The kami we see here likely come to the Aboraya Onsen for a similar need of purification.
We were there in Paris. Exclusive events and incredible restaurants. Nights at the Sapphire Lounge on the Seine. Heaven.
Experience the world as an insider. From exclusive lounges to immersive dining experiences, all at Chase Sapphire Reserve.
I'm thinking of buying a house.
A house? Are you sure? I don't know anyone that owns a house. It's a big commitment. Hey, if you can make it work. I got this.
Chihiro finally meets Yubaba, the owner of the Aburaya Onsen and the only real villain in the story. Her name literally translates as Old Hot Water Woman or Hot Water Witch. The closest parallel to Yubaba in Japanese folklore is Yamauba or Onibaba, a mountain witch thought to use magic and trickery to trap and eat her victims. Although in some cases, Yamauba is thought of as a more benevolent guardian of the mountains. Interestingly, Baba is also a word meaning old woman or midwife in Old Russian. It's possible Miyazaki took some influence for Yubaba from the forced witch of Slavic folklore, Baba Yaga. In fact, Baba Yaga was a character in Miyazaki's 2010 short film, Mr. Doe and the Egg Princess, so he's obviously familiar with this witch from Slavic folklore. In her bird form, Yubaba resembles another creature from Slavic folklore, the Gamayun, or possibly a harpy from Greek mythology. Yubaba's three pet heads are called Kashira, which literally means head. These are very similar to yokai of Japanese folklore called Ubi Okoshi. These yokai resemble giant disembodied heads and are known to attack humans by dropping from a tree, then eating their prey. Due to their smaller size, Kashira might be more influenced by the Buddhist talismans called Daruma dolls.
敵残り1名
Before Chihiro is employed at the onsen, Yubaba steals several characters from her name, but leaves one character, which means Sen, or 1000 in English. This new name is likely a metaphor for what Chihiro is to Yubaba, a number rather than an individual and a source of money. However, the kanji for Chihiro can be interpreted as meaning 1000 questions. So in that sense, the number stayed the same, but Yubaba removed Chihiro's ability to question. Words and names possess mystical power in the folklore of a number of different cultures, but in Japanese folklore, this belief is referred to as kotodama. Kotodama is an important component of Shinto, for example in the creation of paper talismans called omamori. These protective charms are inscribed with the name of a kami and a Shinto shrine, and are therefore imbued with the power of that kami. Yubaba uses this concept somewhat in reverse. She steals Chihiro's name and thus gains power over her. We find out later that she has done the same to Haku, and when Chihiro recalls Haku's true name, he is freed. I should also note that Spirited Away's use of names is similar to their use in the novels of Ursula K. Le Guin, and these were later adapted by Ghibli for Tales of Earthsea. We find out later this stink spirit is not who he appears to be. However, in this form, he resembles a yokai known as Dorotabo. This yokai resembles a man made of mud, and it emerges from muddy rice fields at night. The stink spirit Stink may have also been influenced by Nupepo, a yokai that resembles a grotesque blob of flesh. This yokai can be recognized at a distance by his putrid smell. Of course, this is not actually a stink spirit. He is in fact a river spirit who assumed this form after his river was polluted. Once Chihiro frees the spirit of this pollution, we see his true form. First, his face, which resembles another mask from Noh Theater, and specifically an Okina mask, which depicts a wise old man. As you can see, the river spirit's lower jaw is tied to his upper jaw with string, much like Noh Mask of the site. The river spirit then flies away from the onsen in the form of an Asian-style dragon. In Japanese mythology, as well as East Asian generally, dragons are thought to symbolize and exert control over water in its various forms in nature. For example, the sea, storms, and rain. This perhaps explains why it is raining when the spirit arrives at the onsen, and why the rain stops after he leaves. In Japanese mythology specifically, Mizuchi are dragon or serpent-like creatures thought of as water deities, and sometimes river deities. In fact, one famous legend places the Mizuchi in what is today the Takahashi River.
Oh my god!
Haku is also a river spirit, and thus he also takes the form of a dragon.
Why are you
No-Face
not going in?
possesses
You're the
several
fucking duelist.
characteristics that are unlike any creature I can find
Get
in
up.
Japanese folklore. He seems to absorb and mimic the environment he's in. For example, becoming greedy and bloodlust in the bathhouse, then more polite and well-behaved in Zeniba's house. While in the form of a gluttonous monster, No-Face somewhat resembles creatures in Japanese and general Asian folklore called hungry ghosts. Gaki, as they are called in Japanese folklore, are thought to be spirits created by those who were greedy in life. They are usually depicted as emaciated creatures with bloated bellies, and are thought to possess an eternal hunger. In some depictions, they will consume anything they can get their hands on, yet are never able to satiate their hunger. No-Face doesn't physically
I control
resemble
you
Gaki,
and your mom,
but they may have
Biggie.
influenced his insatiable hunger.
ナイフ射出4体抑制
Oh! Oh!
狩りの時間よ。最後の一人だ。パーフェクト。
あのレイナに魂を奪わせることはしない。
These little paper thingies used by Yubaba's sister Zeniba to attack Haku are called shikigami. In Japanese folklore, shikigami are spirits conjured through the art of onmyodo to serve their master. They may possess various forms, but are often invisible unless bound to folded paper dolls like those that attack Haku. Zeniba's lamp also appears to be a shikigami, but one that has taken a different form. In this scene, Chihiro meets Yubaba's massive baby, Bo, whose name means boy. Bo is a not quite so subtle reference to the legendary folk hero Kintaro, the Golden Boy. In this tale, Kintaro is left in the wild as a baby and raised by the mountain witch, Yamauba, who I previously mentioned as a possible inspiration for Yubaba. Kintaro grows into a beefy young toddler who possesses superhuman strength, great courage, and the ability to communicate with animals. Like Kintaro, Bo also possesses great strength as well as size, much exceeding most depictions of Kintaro. Another clue is Bo's bib, which is inscribed with the character for his name. This is very similar to the bib that Kintaro wears in many depictions, inscribed with the character for gold. Bo is not very brave at first, but after his transformation and journey with Chihiro, he begins to resemble Kintaro in that regard as well. Those are all the references to mythology, folklore, and other kinds of culture that I found most interesting in Spirited Away. As I said earlier, much of this was my interpretation, not what Miyazaki has stated, so keep that in mind. If I missed an interesting reference to mythology or folklore that you noticed, please let me know what it is in the comments below. And
since the creation of Reddit, fans have had the opportunity to discuss their own personal theories on films to no end with total reckless abandon. While some of them are totally outlandish, there are actually some that we've curated a list of our 25 favorite Pixar theories that we believe might actually be true. Join us as we sift through the best of the best. Okay, let's start off with a big one. There's a theory that every single Pixar movie is interconnected. A conspiracy theorist named John Negroni wrote a book that explains that the timeline begins with Brave. There, animals
as you're not walking, dumbass.
Characteristics when the queen turns into a bear. Over the course of time, animals interbreed and are able to speak. But then, surprise, surprise, humans take advantage of that ability and learn to harness their power, like Charles Munson up. By the time
what did that have to do with anything?
Grown significantly. Things take a turn in cars when mankind has destroyed the planet so much that it is uninhabitable for them.
Is it because you're so light on your fucking feet, dumbass?
In A Bug's Life, the ant Flick is a free-thinking keener who just wants to help out his colony. When one of his inventions backfires and ruins the harvest, he becomes a social pariah and is exiled. He is determined to right his wrong, and so decides to befriend some bigger bugs to stand up to the grasshoppers who
But still, why are you only saying it to me, dumbass?
He believes that his new recruits will be the perfect candidates for a bug uprising. At first glance, you may not question this plot. Theorists, however, believe that the story is a metaphor for colonialism and speaks to the historical struggle of the oppressed. The grasshoppers represent the colonizers coming in and taking resources and exercising their military power on the minorities, the ants. Pixar's Up is truly one of the most devastating movies we've ever seen. It should come with a warning before that opening montage, because that first couple minutes of the movie are straight up scarring. For those of you who have seen it, you'll know that at the beginning of the film, we see a sweet couple of kids meet, grow old together, and then the woman tragically dies and leaves her husband heartbroken. A theory suggests that after Ellie passed, Carl died shortly after of a broken heart.
Oh,
This is his adventure in the
64.
afterlife. We hope that if this is actually true, it means he will be reunited with his sweetie and that they'll be able to spend eternity together. In Finding Nemo, there's a theory that suggests that Nemo could be a figment of Marlin's imagination. After Marlin lost his wife and his children, he entered into a period of such intense distress that he went into denial about the whole thing and fabricated the idea of one of his sons surviving to cope with the loss. What we know to be a beautiful father-son tale could actually be one big metaphor for Marlin going through the stages of grief. When Nemo gets captured by the fishing boat, he experiences anger and will stop at nothing to get him back. The last step, acceptance, happens at the end of the film when Marlin is finally able to let Nemo have independence. In Toy Story 2, we meet the character Wheezy, a pitiful little penguin who was shelved due to his broken squeaker. When Woody discovers Wheezy gathering dust, he's lodged in between two books, embarrassed at his predicament. He tells Woody his woeful tale, that he tried to yell for help, but no one could hear him, and then alerts the toys about the upcoming yard sale. One theory about this little sad sap is that he is secretly a villain. Fans suggest that after logging multiple hours alone on the shelf, he became jealous of Woody and the gang and used the yard sale as a way to get the other toys sold. With Woody out of the picture, Andy might give him more attention. If you recall, at the end of Monsters, Inc., Sully totally ghosts Boo and she's left questioning why her new blue friend has disappeared. After this heartbreak, Boo decides to learn how to time travel so she can track down her pal. Because she's logged some hours in Monstropolis, Boo knows that the secret to jumping from place to place lies in the magical hanging doors. While traveling through time and space, Boo finally lands in the world of Brave, where she meets Merida. Because we can see a carving that looks very much like Sully in one of the scenes, we believe Boo is the witch and has spent all this time looking to reunite with her old friend.
Travelling to the UK, you will need an electronic travel authorization, or ETA. You need to apply before travelling. Everyone travelling to the UK without a visa will need one. It lasts 2 years and is valid for multiple trips. Apply for your ETA today. Restrictions apply.
We're gonna let Coach Rodman do this. Risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Another Monsters, Inc. theory is that Bing Bong from Inside Out was actually a monster who worked with
Oh my God!
At Monsters Incorporated, monsters are hired to be what is known as a scarer and are assigned multiple kids to haunt at night. Doors are activated and used as portals to their bedrooms so they can visit places all over the world. By the end of the Monsters,
They're going mid to A.
Sully and Mike discover that kids aren't dangerous and toxic as they were taught, but rather wonderful and kind. Ultimately, they discover that children's laughter is actually stronger than their screams. Fans believe Bing Bong was sent to Riley to collect her laughter energy, but Riley believes she was an imaginary friend. In Toy Story 2, we meet Jessie, the fast-talking, feisty girl who immediately won our hearts. Fans believe that Andy's mom was her in the films, Andy is seen wearing a cowboy hat that matches Jessie's. Also, in Jessie's origin story, her lying on a bed beside the very hat Andy wears. Coincidence? We think not. We also think that Emily gets her son to play with toys from the Roundup gang because she's nostalgic for her past. We lost our minds when Jessie was dumped in a donation bin, and now we know who's behind the heartbreak. So it all adds up that Andy's mom is the true Toy Story villain. Case closed. In Cars, upon hearing Owen Wilson's voice and watching action-packed races, you were probably having too much fun to contemplate its deeper meaning. But one teeny tiny detail that zooms past the average viewer is that there are no humans in this world. Given that these cars are clearly man-made, we can deduce that at some point humans were present to wipe down those windows and pump those tires. Fans have two theories that explain the theory absence. One is that the cars decided humans were so they turned against mankind and ran them all over, creating a particularly gruesome amount of roadkill. And the other very feasible explanation is that humankind was wiped out by their own pollution. Let's all make sure to be environmentally conscious so this theory doesn't turn into reality. There's a theory that suggests Andy's parents are going through a divorce in Toy Story. While we now know that Andy's mom is a toy abandoner, we don't know much about his dad. We never see him around, and he's not present in any family photos. We're thinking either she's always been a single mom and made the decision to have the kids on her own, or she took the photos down because she had a falling out with Andy's dad. If we look at the story, we can see that she's moving houses. This could be because the divorce was recent and she wants a new space for herself and her new life. On top of all that, she's never seen wearing a wedding ring. If you've seen Ratatouille, you'll remember that at the end of the film, the very snobby and very French food critic is moved by Remy's dish. He gives it a sensational review and admits it reminds him of his mother's cooking. Fans decided to investigate more about this critic's past and discovered something incredible. In the first scene of the movie, Remy and his family are forced out of an old woman's house. In her kitchen, we see various objects, like a teapot, some jars, and stove handles. These exact same objects are in Ego's memories when he has a flashback at the end of the film. So that means that the old woman at the start of the movie is actually Ego's mother. That's why Remy can cook the dish so perfectly. Mind blown. One interesting Reddit theory suggests that Frozen and Brave are linked. It says that the city of Arendelle was on the opposing side of the war that united the clans in They point out that Arendelle was originally built as a military fort during the war and suggest that both the Duke of Weselton and Elsa's father fought in it. If they were fighting at the same time, that would mean Elsa and Merida are around the same age and that they're living parallel lives. Some more evidence that they have is that when the Duke discovers Elsa's powers, he's not shocked, but rather afraid, as if he's seen this before. Perhaps because he's encountered the sorceress. This next theory is a bit of a downer. While the first theory we looked at suggested that there was hope for planet Earth, this one says that there is absolutely no chance for humankind to survive. In WALL-E, we get a glimpse into the 99th century, where environmental neglect has caused the Earth to be uninhabitable and wasteland, we need a waste allocation road lifter whose job it is to clean up the mess. While the film was made famous for criticizing human environmental impact and consumerism, fans suggest that it was actually WALL-E himself that ended the Earth. They say that WALL-E actually dismantles the cleaning units, and with them out of commission, the Earth goes to ruin.
With drug discovery tools powered by Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA, you can analyze data in real time and turn research into reality faster.
Without questioning why you signed up for it then. But you'll never question 20 grams of protein or creamy peanut butter. We took the thinking out of snacking. Don't think. Think.
To counter that, there's a way less heavy theory about WALL-E that will cheer you up. Remember in the film when he finds a little plant amongst the heap of human trash? Expert theorists have suggested that the very plant he finds ends up growing into the tree that sustains life for the colony of ants in A Bug's Life. This again ties back to the original theory we discussed that all Pixar films are related. At this point in the Pixar timeline, humans are living on Earth. In WALL-E, they have left the planet, and this could be during the time where Earth has begun to rebuild itself and is finally harboring life again. Let's all agree that Randall Boggs from Monsters Inc. is the scariest Pixar character out there. Though in Monsters Inc. we get a character who wants to capture children for the screams, in Monster University we get more of a backstory. Sporting sweet purple glasses, we meet a young Randall who is all freckles and timidness as a teen. It wasn't until he felt left out by Mike and Sully that he took a turn for the worse. After that, theorists believe that when Randall started working at Monsters Inc., he was given Andy from Toy Story to scare. During the scene where Randall is practicing scare tactics, we can see proof of this as he's casting himself on the bedroom wall to look like Andy's wallpaper. We're not done with Monsters Inc. quite yet. This theory will be looking at Randall's direct competition, James P. Sullivan, or as we know him, Sully. Sully is a gigantic blue and purple monster with a bewitching pair of periwinkle eyes. Though he looks soft to the touch, don't let it fool you. He has horns on his head, sharpened claws, and when he roars it can shake the ceiling. He's pretty much solely responsible for generating power for many neighborhoods in the city of Monstropolis. While in the films we see him excelling at life, there is a theory that it doesn't end so well for him. In the Pixar short Partysaurus Rex, there's a toilet seat cover that has the exact pattern of his skin. Chilling. Our next theory ties into the initial theory that we covered that says all Pixar films are connected. Apparently, the monsters from Monsters Inc. evolved from primitive man. Once upon a time, humans and monsters lived in harmony, and no two monsters looked the same. They were unique, with everything from scales to fur, and they came in all colors of the rainbow. In the special features on the Monsters Inc. DVD, it explains
oh my god!
Side by side, the monsters were eventually driven away. They hid in an enchanted island where magical creatures characteristics of the animals that ate them. Having evolved into unsightly creatures, they decided to head back to the humans and use scare tactics to feel superior. One particularly fun theory that we found states that Edna from The Incredibles was once a villain. For one, she seems pretty captivated by all things that have to do with danger and is mysteriously well versed with weapons, lest we forget the flamethrowers. When we take a look at her character, right off the bat she's intimidating. Even her house is frightening and strangely well guarded. What sealed the deal for us was how the theorist explained that Edna thinks like a villain. When she made the suit for Jack-Jack, she knew he would be a target and could predict that he would need protection. An interview with Jay Ward, the creative director of Cars, gave us a little insight into where these beings came from and what secrets lie under the hood. Before being interviewed, fans concocted the theory that the characters in Cars have human parts, which sounds incredibly far-fetched. But when Ward was asked why the cars have doors, he replied, "You'll never see the doors open because the brains and the eyes are there and we don't want anything falling out of the side." That quite literally is what nightmares are made of. And while we're happy we got to the bottom of this theory, we're mad we now have to live a life with that image forever burnt into our brains. You might notice that many details in Pixar films are familiar and yet somehow off. Take The Incredibles, for instance. Some of the garb looks familiar, but it's a mix of 60s style with New Age emotions. We believe that this world is existing in an alternate universe in which humans have created new technologies at a faster rate. But we have to go farther back than that. In The Good Dinosaur, we witness an asteroid about to hit our precious home. But in the movie, it misses Earth entirely, and the dinosaurs are able to keep evolving. Because of this, the world as we know it has changed and allows for new species to grow and come to be. When watching Inside Out, we left the theaters with our hearts a little fuller, and yes, let's be honest, tear-streaked faces. But there is one theory that suggests that the film is a little darker than we gave it credit for. Recall the moment when Riley goes into her mom's purse and is looking for her credit card. When you look closely, something doesn't add up. Riley's mother's name is Jill Anderson, but the card reads Kay Ann Anderson, a totally different name.
That doesn't even fucking make sense, idiot.
Family's financial
If you're gonna say who, it has to be to a fucking question.
Could the move be because of their credit card fraud? We'll leave it to you to discuss in the comments. In the Pixar universe, memories are a very
when I make a statement like KO, when I say KO, LMAO, you mad?
We see Riley's memories change and adapt with age, and she looks back on a previous chapter of her life. They take on new meaning, and she conjures up the memory of her playing hockey with her dad. While once associating it with joy, she now looks at it with sadness. In Coco, memories are the only thing that keep the spirit attached to the world of the living. If someone remembers a person that has passed, that person can return on the Day of the Dead. Coco learns what family means and is able to understand the power of memory, connecting the film to Inside Out in deeper ways than we could have ever imagined. In Pixar movies, we see that
why are you acting scared?
Are integral to all storylines. Whether it's dealing with loss and Up or between Woody and Buzz in Toy Story, each film makes us question our humanity and empathize with the characters on screen. But more often than not, Pixar unpacks human emotion in a myriad of ways, suggesting that it is more powerful than even Mr. Incredible himself. In Inside Out, emotions are personified, and we get a closer look into the mind of a young girl named Riley and see what she's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We see how her human emotions affect her interpersonal relationships and understand how her own energy is affected by them. So yeah, the theory is Pixar is our personal therapist, and the theory is proven to be true for many of us. One of the big life lessons in the world of The Incredibles is simple: no capes. Fashion icon Edna Mode explains the dangers of wearing a cape, and we get to see a particularly humorous montage of supers who meet their end because of this poor fashion choice. Among these supers is Stratagale, who gets sucked into the turbine on a jumbo jet. Later in the movie, we see that Stratagale was a high school student when her record flashes on screen. Theorists say that Edna was so devastated by this death that she could not forgive herself. It was only until Syndrome came to her for a costume that she was able to redeem herself. She made Syndrome an outfit with a cape, knowing that it would be his downfall. Last but certainly not least, we have the theory that the Pizza Planet truck from Toy Story connects multiple Pixar movies. It made its shining debut in Toy Story, and since then has been a favorite cameo in every Pixar movie since. In A Bug's Life, the truck was spotted outside in Bug City. In the movie Cars, the truck comes to life and is given a face. In the movie, the truck can be seen watching races. While those are the more obvious examples, in many films the truck zooms by or is caught in traffic in the background. Next time you see a Pixar movie, we encourage you to keep your eyes peeled and wonder, how does this truck traverse through all these movies like some sort of interdimensional time machine? We hope you enjoyed our screen rant. Were there any theories that we missed? If so, let us know in the comments and we'll be sure to cover them in the future. On that note, please subscribe to our channel on your way out to ensure you'll never miss another video again. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.
Ooh, 130 right now.
Miss Frankie, the devil knocked, and we opened the door.
How do you plead to count one? Child abuse. Ruby is hostile and guilty of abusive to psychotic.
Spike set to stay.
When the world gave them setbacks,
Science
gave them bounce backs. When Norvet delivered life-altering news, science delivered life-changing nutrition. Hill's prescription diet. Science did that.
ここよ。
最後の一人だ。
Amazing characters, films, animation, and Easter eggs. From recurring brands, teasers for future films,
油断は禁物です。足をすくわれますよ。
and it's that love and attention to detail that makes every rewatch just as magical as the first.
Just a few hours, you'll be sitting around a campfire with Andy making delicious hot s'mores.
誰か買ってもらえますか?
They're called s'mores, Buzz. Right.
One of the Easter eggs that Pixar loves to include is an homage to their first ever short, Luxo Jr. While the lamp became a key part of their logo and appears in some of the movies, it's the ball with the orange star and blue stripe that really stands out.
これで見えない。隠すよ。
That little girl didn't just have the blue stripe by her bed is a familiar looking teddy bear. While Lotso wouldn't be introduced until Toy Story 3 came out a year later, it's clearly a Lotso hugging bear sitting by her bed. It took a whole year for people to realize that we couldn't help but wonder if he was secretly engaged.
Bye.
Another Pixar staple is the one Chinese
Spike
food
set to
box.
stay.
Not only is it enjoyed by Riley's family in Inside Out and The Incredibles, but it seemed to be Linguini's go-to place to eat in Ratatouille. If his fridge is anything to go by his.
Oh my god.
Love this Chinese food place. The first time the box made an appearance in a Pixar film was actually in A Bug's Life. Manny used a cabinet of metamorphosis.
敵残り1名。
characters with noodly goodness ever since. Of course, the most iconic Pixar restaurant, not including Cousteau's, has to be Pizza Planet. The franchise first appeared in Toy Story, and the famous yellow truck with a rocket has been in one Pixar movie since. Even films set in the past somehow managed to get the truck in. The Good Dinosaur has the truck hidden in the background of the meteors for a second at the start of the movie, and Brave has a carving of the truck in the witch's hut. Incredibly, it's only The Incredibles that doesn't have the Pizza Planet truck, because apparently supers don't get to enjoy a nice slice of pizza. Then again, the truck did manage to make its way into the video game version of the movie that was released in 2004 for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, so I guess in that way, the truck has been everywhere.
Oh, all this packing makes me hungry. What would you say to dinner at, oh, Pizza Planet? Pizza Planet? Oh, cool!
You're the perfect couple. Tell me how hard. Better don't.
Queen を倒した。
There's a traitor in the house. Find the leak.
Shows the suspect.
I can feel when you're watching me. I like it.
If it is Catherine, do you really think you can do it?
Would you kill for me?
Black Bag, rated R, only in theaters March 14th.
Association is a trusted advisor and resource for restaurant operators, coffee shops, bakery, anyone in the food service industry. HMAA provides a vast menu of benefit plan options with the richest medical plan benefits and low-cost plans. They provide medical prescription, dental, vision, and
Oh, why stage clear, y'all? That's insane.
The food service industry in Hawaii. It's been a godsend.
But the biggest business in the Pixar universe has to be By and Large. In WALL-E, the company promised to clean up Earth while humanity fled to space. But the rest of B&L's appearances aren't quite as grand. The company logo can be seen around racetracks in Cars 3, and even on the batteries that power up Buzz in Toy Story 3. With such a wide variety of products, it's not exactly clear what By and Large specializes in. Aerospace engineering, electronics, whatever it is, it certainly made them a lot of money if they can support taking all of humanity to space. Ooh,
the fuck is your problem? Get your sassy ass attitude out of here.
Being set in the land of the dead, and Easter eggs they could have come up with could have become depressing really fast. But, like always, Pixar leads the way. And Afterlife Cinema, where The Incredibles movie poster can be seen on the wall. The image has been changed from the one we're most familiar with. Which certainly raises some more. But that's not the only familiar face seen in a Pixar movie. The aquarium in Finding Dory is on a school trip that was familiar to anyone who's watched Inside Out. Instead of just making all new human models, Pixar reused the kids from Riley's class, including Riley herself. Not clear when Finding Dory is compared to Inside Out, but it's clear that this is just another happy memory to add to Riley's collection. The most unexpected character sighting in a Pixar movie has to be in Brave. While he doesn't make a physical appearance, Sully from Monsters, Inc. can be seen inside of the witch's hut. It's hard to spot amongst the endless bear carvings, but when the room runs away from the crow, you can just about make out the carvings in front of the shelves. This could be a small Easter egg or a small teaser from Monsters University. But it's interesting that the person with the carving also found the doorway, just like the Monsters team. The witch happened to cross Sully, she may have started emulating him. After all, if it wasn't for the tail, he would just look like a bear. Or maybe their connection runs a bit deep. Of course, when it comes to odd cameos, there's always Doug in France. Separated from everyone, he's still a dog. It's still a good thing that he did. The circus in A Bug's Life is another reference. The cookie container that they used to travel around is called Cookies, after the train from Dumbo. When the movie first came out, this was just a reference to a Disney movie. Now that Disney owns Pixar, it's a nod to a fellow movie studio. And while some people may not consider it to be a Pixar to Pixar reference, it's such a small, sweet detail that couldn't help but include it. Really, that's left to wonder is, what exactly Casey Jr. cookies taste like? One of the most iconic symbols in Up is Ellie's Taste Like Grape soda pop cap. But Up wasn't the first time this brand of soda made an appearance in Pixar film. The first time the soda is seen is in the commercial for the Buzz Lightyear action figure. The soda is seen in a can rather than a bottle, but based on the font, the two are the exact same brand. With this small little tie into the first ever full-length animated picture made by Pixar, Ellie's badge becomes all the more meaningful. Carl handing off the badge to Russell looks a lot more like the first Seriously, can this movie stop making me cry already? Even though Riley is only 11 years old during the events of Inside Out, memory. While it would have been easy to something to each memory. Hard to make out what's in each orb, but in two sadness orbs, it's possible to see up. One shows Carl and Ellie's wedding, while the other side shows couples sadness. But it's a small detail that really makes the movie stand out. And shows the right emotions to go with it. The opening to Up can't be described as anything but sad. In Finding Nemo, Dr. Sherman's office is full of little references to other Pixar movies. And one teaser. At the time the movie released, this little boy waiting for his appearance that seems like nothing special. But after The Incredibles hit theaters, it suddenly became clear who he was reading about. The comic depicts Mr. Incredible in his first super suit, allowing the eye on his chest to stand out. It's also clear that he's reading about the adventures of Mr. Incredible from before we knew him. We can't help but feel a little bit jealous. Whatever villain he was taking on, it has to be an amazing story that we may never get to hear. But maybe Pixar will make some prequels? Hopefully? But Mr. Incredible isn't the only character hidden at the dentist's. In the toy chest in the corner of the room, a Buzz Lightyear action figure can be seen. So he can fly to infinity and beyond. Judging by where he is, though, he's probably as well as he can. better than his stay at Sunnyside Daycare. Not just other Pixar movies that get referenced in the films, Pixar put in a lot of references to their shorts. Characters of characters in the movie. Seen in Jerry's game, the old man who's playing a chess game against himself. Then in Toy Story 2, Jerry is seen again. This time with the tools needed to clean up and fix Woody. It's a small reference that but now that the old shorts are getting a place in Disney Plus, these moments are getting a chance to shine. And it's great to see Jerry doing well. But Jerry isn't the only reference to a short that can be found in the Toy Story series. In the very first Toy Story, the book scenes scattered around the room are named after the different shorts that Pixar had already produced. Titles like Knick Knack and Red Dreams can be seen stowed around the room, not to mention a few other amusing titles like Feet First. It's not clear if the books are the same as the shorts, but whether they are or not, they're bound to be fantastic stories.
Sad, strange little man. Farewell.
Then there are the references that are more of a nod to past characters and stories. The brothers in Onward make it to the Manticore's Tavern, it's possible to see the open kitchen in the background. While the mouse scene working there isn't exactly the same model they used for Remy and Ratatouille, it's hard to see a mouse in the kitchen and not think of the best chef that Pixar ever had. Why did he leave France? Who knows? Maybe it wasn't enough of a challenge for him. Maybe the promise of new and exciting ingredients. In her imagination, Riley has another Pixar Disney crossover. Princess Dreamworld was turned into confetti and sparkles by a wrecking ball scene. Disney's logo. It's not a surprise that Riley would associate princesses with Disney, and the entire thing serves as a nod to their parent company. Another clever reference happens in Toy Story. Daycare, one of them has a familiar logo on their shirt. The clear lightning bolt and the large red 95, the young boy with curly hair is clearly a Lightning McQueen fan. It makes sense, seeing as he can be seen hanging around the racing toys. This can be a little easy to miss, though, seeing as it appears and disappears. Of course, this does raise some questions about how the two stories relate to one another. There aren't any people in the Cars universe, so how does this kid know who Lightning McQueen is? Did McQueen start racing before people disappeared? You know what, on second thought, this clever little reference might be a lot darker than it first appeared. But an even smaller and quicker reference happens in Us. At the travel agency, a brochure can be seen on the desk, and it's probably meant for Miami, considering who's on it. The sunglasses and hair clearly belong to sunny Miami, the main characters in the short. The Easter egg is probably the easiest to miss. The fact that we're too busy bawling our eyes out. Seriously, was that the best place for an Easter egg, Pixar? A better place to put references would be among the knickknacks and everything in between that Wally card. It's not to say that
I'm sorry.
They took the time to put
I'm sorry.
hidden among his things. As we know, he survives whatever depressing twist Toy Story 5 comes up with.
I thought we could search the style. Nice going there, Ham.
Feeling healthy by leaps and bounds. Making a dinner that makes their whole day. And giving your best friend the best nutrients for their best life. Science did that.
Incoming dishes! Dawn Power Wash flies through 99% of grease in half the time. The better grease getter.
And the little pig isn't the only thing in Wally's collection. Whenever his favorite robot first made his way back home, he plays a recording. And in the background, there's a familiar shape. Well, it can be hard to tell, especially because Up came out a year after Wally, but Carl's walking stick can be seen right at the TV. While it's rusted with age and upside down, those little Transformers are too unique for it to be anything else. Of course, the latest teaser has to be one of the most creative. The start of Onward when Barley is
Bro!
It's possible to see behind him. The shelf is a collection of vinyls. While it's not clear which of the family members they belong to, we do know what song. Jazz artist that Joe Gardner wants to impress. It's a small detail, but those always seem to be more special.
攻守を交代マッチポイント
私が敵を抑制する行動の選択肢を奪えばミスを誘えるその隙をつけ
During the final scare game, the rooms the contestants must enter for the scare simulation are filled with toys. When they're cleaning up the room after Don's scare, an Apatosaurus doll that looks suspiciously like Arlo is swept away, making another teaser for the next Pixar movie. And finally, the biggest references to another Pixar movie, both in size and clarity. During Cars 3, when Cruz Ramirez is training the hopeful racers, she notices that one of the cars is feeling homesick. To cheer him up, she pulls up a picture of Santa Cecilia on his monitor. The image was
Sorry, my name.
But that's because it wasn't only going to show up for a couple of seconds. The image shown is actually one of the main settings in the
Life is just
With so many references to other Pixar movies, it's no wonder that fans have started coming up with theories that link each of the movies together. But no matter how interesting the Pixar theory is, it's never been confirmed. For now, all we can do is comb through each movie to see what other Easter eggs we can find, and try to see if we can't find the next film.
It's
With digital assistants powered by Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA.
Blue would be complimentary. Maybe go brighter.
You can personalize shopping experiences. Keep your business moving forward.
Nice, nice.
Make every wash count.
攻守を交代
As good as Finding Nemo, Monsters Inc., and Up are, my all-time favorite Pixar movie is the superhero classic, The Incredibles. I don't really need an excuse to watch the movie again, but once I found out about all the secret moments Pixar snuck by me, I couldn't launch Disney Plus fast enough. The Incredibles is one of those movies where the time period is really hard to determine. The style and music really pointed to a throwback film, but the technology and cultural norms pointed to a modern setting. This is why going back to a classic years later is so important. Thanks to the genius that is 4K resolution, fans zoomed in on Bob's newspaper and saw that the year was 1962. So the beginning sequence was in the 40s, while the rest of the film and its sequel are set in the early 60s. That makes all of Syndrome's computers way more impressive. Pixar is more known for aggressive Easter egging than any other company in Hollywood. While I thought that I knew all of the big incredible Easter eggs, this huge one was hiding right in plain sight. I've always thought Syndrome's character design was a weird choice. He looks cool, but he has very distinct features that aren't the standard supervillain fare. It turns out that he was actually designed to look like director Brad Bird. At first I didn't see it, but now I can't unsee it. I'm not sure if this was a massive compliment to Mr. Bird, or like the best burn and someone's boss a team ever got away with. I kind of hope it was the last. The plane crash is far from the most complicated action sequence in The Incredibles, but apparently a lot of thought and care went into it. For one, the scene is supposed to establish Elastigirl's past by introducing her old sidekick, Snug, who supplied the plane. He would have fallen to his end with the plane, but they decided to have Helen fly the plane instead. This proved to be the right choice because Holly Hunter made sure all of those radio signals were 100% accurate. In the final version of the scene, you can still see Helen look out at the water as Snug's body disappears. Edna Mode is one of my top 5 Pixar characters. Obviously, Mr. Pricklepants by himself is the other 4. It's crazy to think that as perfect as Mode is, she was almost completely different. Originally, actress Lily Tomlin was cast in the role. When Brad Bird demonstrated what he thought she would sound like, Tomlin loved it so much that she dropped out of the film. That's a classy move right there, Lily Tomlin. It turns out that this was a perfect choice, as the character is one of the company's most iconic.
You're the best of the best. Yeah.
Dove, man, plus kid.
Oh, my whole team.
Theo protects you everywhere.
One of the most visually stunning sequences in the movie is the end credits sequence. The throwback cel-shaded art was a really cool choice to highlight the best moments in the movie in an interesting way. Funnily enough, the original pitch for The Incredibles was for Warner Brothers Animation, with an animation style reminiscent of the cel-shaded ending sequence. Once it moved to Pixar, it took on a Pixar style, with only this one little taste of the movie that might have been. As cool as the end credits were, I'm glad that wasn't the entire freaking movie. I feel like it would've gotten old really fast. There is a surprisingly deep moment of detail to the Incrediboy scene. Watching the film in 4K, you can see that poor Buddy was so into his superhero costume that he did the Batman movie thing where he colored in his eyelids so that they matched his mask. You can even see the smudges as if he did it with marker or something. Later on in the scene, you can see Incrediboy's reflection where his evil future self is the distorted image. Maybe that's when he got the inspiration for that horrible. Disney fans love to go the extra mile when investigating these movies. For example, when Mirage gives Bob her card, there's an actual phone number on it. Well, fans looked at the standard phone key card and figured out what it spelled. The number spelled out superhero, which is just a ridiculous level of attention to detail. Not only that, but the phone number used to be active. For a little while, you could call it and get a message, but unfortunately it's no longer active. Either that, or it's just what Mirage wants us all to think. Samuel L. Jackson was cast as Frozone because they wanted the coolest voice possible for the ice-themed superhero. I mean, it was either him or James Earl Jones, but they did a great job with that casting. The Sam Jackson love actually made it into the